Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for standing by. Welcome to today's session in the ReadyTalk webinar series. We put together the series to help you with the purpose of building a community where you can interact with experts on a variety of topics to enhance your organization's success and your professional development. Today's seminar is entitled, Generate More Qualified Leads with Webinars, a Step-by-Step Approach. Today we have Melanie Turek, Principal Analyst from Frost & Sullivan, Jessica Kahn, Senior Marketing Manager from Rally, and Andrea Frangos, Senior Marketing Manager from NewsGator, joining us to share their insights on how to generate leads with webinars. Before we get started, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. During the presentation, everyone will be in listen-only mode. However, we encourage your questions or comments at any time through the chat feature located at the lower left hand of your screen. We will leave plenty of time at the end to queue all of your questions up to the speakers after the presentation. As a reminder, this web seminar is being recorded today, Wednesday, April 27th, and you will all receive a link to the recording and a copy of the slides after the event is over. With that said, I'd like to get started. And before we get started, I wanted to just pose a couple questions to the audience. Knowing that marketers today face a dizzying array of technologies they can use to create demand and generate leads for the sales team, I'm interested in knowing what of the following services or softwares that our audience uses today to accomplish these tasks. I'm just going to throw up a quick poll here. And if you guys could answer that poll, I'd just like to get a feel for what kind of services our audience is using to help us generate demand. And you can click on as many as you'd like. Great. Looks like a majority of us are actually using marketing automation software. A lot of us are actually, almost half of us are using Salesforce. And of course, as expected, a lot of us are using Google Analytics, and that's to be expected as well. Great. Another question I have, one final poll is, if you currently run a webinar series for the express purpose of creating demand and generating leads, what's your biggest challenge that you face in 2011? And again, you can just choose your largest challenge. Some responses still coming in. Looks like a close tie between promotion and keeping your audience engaged. And we're definitely going to go over some of those issues today, and hopefully we'll have some tactics you can take away and help you solve some of these problems. So with those questions asked, I want to get right in, and Melanie Turek is going to start us off. Melanie, you can take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike, and hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Melanie Turek. I'm an industry director with Frost & Sullivan in the Enterprise Communications and Collaboration practice. And I'm just going to kick things off here by spending a little time talking about some of the high-level view of why we see using web conferencing for marketing to be a very good way to reach out to prospects and customers and see a significant ROI on that effort. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just get started by talking a little bit about some of the changes that we're seeing overall in the business environment that is definitely affecting the ways in which marketers need to do their jobs. So first and foremost, chances are you've got a lot of customers and prospects who are really widely dispersed, right? We're no longer in a world where your business is fairly regionally narrow unless you're a mega company or a global company. You in fact, regardless of where you operate or what you do, probably have customers and want to increase that customer base maybe all over the region, all over the country, or indeed all over the world. So there is only a certain amount of in-person sort of gathering together that you can do under those conditions, right? So we need to sort of figure out how do we meet that challenge. At the same time, all of those prospects and customers are looking for more from you, right? So they're actually expecting the people who they do business with whether those companies are B2B or B2C, to give them more for their money, and not just around products and services, but around information, right? They actually, if they're going to have a relationship with you that's deeper than just paying for something and moving on, they're sort of expecting you to give them information that they can use and they can leverage with their own life or job. And so that means that you really need to be continually reaching out to these customers and indeed to prospects so that they have this sense of kind of a touch point with you, right? So that you start to develop that loyalty. And the loyalty isn't just around the brand. In the old days, we think, well, a particular brand itself represents quality in the product or reliability in the service. Obviously, all that stuff is still important. But what you also want them to start to do is associate kind of market thought leadership, if you will, with your brand, right? They want to be thinking about you as a resource for more than just whatever they may be getting out of the product or service. And this is particularly true for organizations that are in B2B, where your primary customers are other organizations, other businesses, right? They're really looking to you to be more of a partner than just a vendor. And finally, of course, although the economy is slowly pushing its way up, we still see that shortened sales cycles, reducing costs, and obviously increasing revenues are absolutely critical right now for businesses. So the marketer's job is as important as it's ever been, but it's definitely changing. And when we look at, hey, what are really our top marketing challenges for the day, getting your message out faster is super critical now, right? With the internet, with social media, news and information travels, it seems, at light speed. And that means that you need to be able to turn around a marketing campaign or an effort or a message really, really quickly. And we're kind of gone are the days when you used to have plan out 3 or 4, maybe if you were very aggressive, 5 or 6 marketing campaigns over a period of time and really get some opportunity to work on those. I mean, these days you need to be out there all the time with new messaging and new opportunities to touch your prospects and your customers. And obviously they need to be targeted correctly, and they need to stay on message to the broader overall corporate goal, but you've got to constantly be feeding that pipeline. At the same time, of course, marketing typically seen as very often a cost center, right? And so, the goal is always, okay, we've got to reduce the cost of marketing. We've got to get all those numbers down. But what the other thing that you're probably thinking is, hey, how can I turn that around and actually make marketing more closely tied to revenue generation, so that actually marketing becomes really more of a strategic service and with clear value, clear ROI, rather than just sort of a cost center, if you will. You've got to cut through a lot of clutter out there. So what we're finding, as I said, is people are inundated these days with information, regardless of where it's coming from, right? If it's coming over Facebook or Twitter or just via their email, they're getting tons and tons of information. And a lot of that is coming from your direct competition, but a lot of it isn't, and it doesn't really matter. You have to find messaging that cuts through all of that information and is actually going to get people to start to pay attention. But ultimately, in the end, you need to deliver qualified leads to your sales team, right? And that means finding ways to know that the people who are listening to your messages are indeed qualified, that they're kind of worth following up with, but then also figuring out the best way to do that, right? So, what is person A's interest in this particular product or service versus person B, and how can I then help the sales team reach out to each of those people in a little bit different way based on the information, the knowledge that I have, thanks to my interactions with them. That's going to get you that much farther down the road, obviously, to closing that deal. So when we look at web conferencing, obviously we're all familiar with what a web conference is. We're on one right now, but just to make sure we understand what kinds of capabilities we're looking at. Obviously, web-based presentations are the biggest use still of web conferencing. It's what we're doing right now. But the other thing I really encourage you to do, and I know there were a lot of people who said, I have a hard time keeping my audience engaged, or at least that's the thing I'm most worried about doing when it comes to a marketing web conference, is using the technology to collaboratively share applications, to work on files, annotate documents, share websites, things like that. Now, you may say, well, how do I do that with customers and prospects? But it's actually not that hard. You can find ways to get your speakers so that they're kind of interacting around a particular technology. Obviously, if you're in the high-tech space, if what you're demoing is software or something like that, that obviously has clear advantages. But you want to kind of keep it real interactive, really kind of active, if you will. And the other part of that is having a lot of polls, surveys like Mike did at the beginning, Q&A. We invite you right now, obviously, to post any questions that you have. Invite sidebar chats if necessary, so that, again, you're engaging that audience constantly. The other thing, though, that some of those things are going to do is actually give you some information on that audience, right, both collectively and on an individual basis, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. And then finally, you need to be able to record and archive the sessions. Very, very important, because obviously it allows you to leverage your initial live investment for months to come, where you can still get that information out to prospects and hopefully leverage that.